Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Hot Topics segment of the 25th Annual Idaho Environmental Forum Legislative Forum, sometimes known as the Legislative Gala, sometimes known as our Legislative Soiree or event, but it is the Legislative Forum, and we thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Marie Calloway-Kellner, the Conservation Program Director at the Idaho Conservation League and an IEF board member. And here with me today are several of my fellow IEF board members who I'd like to introduce. The recently retired soil scientist and all-around natural resource guru, Dr. Mike Murray. Yay! Former administrator of the Idaho Office of Species Conservation and current attorney with Idaho Power, Mr. Scott Pugrud. Thank you for being here, Scott. And one of our newest board colleagues, the Associate Director of the Rangeland Center at the University of Idaho and a fellow Tennessean by birth like myself, Mr. Eric Winford. We're glad this is Eric's first Hot Topics. Mike has got the most experience, and Scott and I fall somewhere in the middle, but we all are going to try to pull this off. So the four of us are here today for a time-honored Idaho Environmental Forum Legislative Forum Gala event tradition called Hot Topics. And this is when each of us take a relevant or hot, if you will, natural resource topic and give you as much information about it as we can in 5 minutes and only 5 minutes. And we will be timed, and there will be strict enforcement of the time limit. So we're going to set the clock. And first up today is Mr. Scott Pugrud, who's going to speak about federal agencies' renewed interest in environmental justice. So the rest of us are going to go. Scott, I'm about to get your clock started. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And go.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Marie. And it was lovely to see you all for a minute this morning. As Marie mentioned, my hot topic today is federal agencies' renewed emphasis on environmental justice. One of the key campaign promises of the Biden administration was a promise to issue a wide-ranging suite of actions to address climate change and environmental justice. But we should back up and answer first the question, what is environmental justice? Environmental justice, or EJ, is a social movement that has its origins in the early 1980s when citizens of a predominantly African-American community in North Carolina peacefully protested dangerous chemical waste being disposed of in their landfill. While federal law does not necessarily define environmental justice, the EPA considers environmental justice the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. A little bit of historical context. In 1994, the Clinton administration passed the very first environmental justice executive order entitled Federal Actions to Address Environmental Justice in Minority Populations and Low-Income Populations. The purpose of this executive order was to focus federal attention on the environmental and human health effects of federal actions on minority and low-income populations with the goal of achieving environmental protection for all communities. The executive order directed federal agencies to identify and address the disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of their actions on minority and low-income populations to the greatest extent practicable and permitted by law. It directed federal agencies to develop a strategy for implementing environmental justice, and it promoted the non-discrimination in federal programs that affect human health and the environment, as well as providing minority and low-income communities access to public information and public participation. It's largely considered that the Clinton executive order is still in effect today, but in the early days of the Biden administration, the White House and EPA sought to put EJ at the center of all federal actions and directed agencies to prioritize environmental justice principles in federal government decisions that have any environmental impact. To that end, one of Biden's first executive orders that he signed within his first 90 days of office was the executive order on protecting public health and the environment and restoring science to tackle the climate crisis. This executive order emphasizes environmental justice's integration into the U.S. government and focuses on issues of climate change, economic revitalization, and importantly, job creation. The executive order aims to conserve public lands and waters and improve air quality and water quality in an effort to create well-paying union jobs and more opportunities for women and people of color in hard-hit communities. The executive order also directed agencies to review and roll back actions taken during the Trump administration that are in conflict with or opposition to these stated policy goals. And we've already seen some of this in the first year, 2 years of the administration, in the reversal and rollback of the methane emission standards, reconsideration and rollbacks of the energy efficiency standards, review of the mercury and air toxic standards for coal plants, reestablishment of the interagency work group on the social cost of greenhouse gas emissions to determine the social benefits of limiting global warming, and importantly, rollback and elimination of the previous administration's NEPA reform. The Biden administration's attention to environmental justice is significant in terms of the scope, speed, and visibility. We've already seen this policy directive has been implemented across a broad range of issues and agencies while maintaining a relatively high degree of consistency and coordination. It's clear that moving forward, project proponents must be cognizant of the impact that an environmental justice community can have on a project by challenging the federal permitting and NEPA analysis that's intended to analyze and disclose impacts on the environmental justice communities. And in addition, project proponents should be investing in proactive planning efforts.
That's the quack. No. You're the duck. You've hit your 5 minutes. But you know what? This is really important. So why don't you actually finish your thought? It's very important.
Okay. Just the last thought that I had is that it's important for project proponents to be investing in proactive planning efforts and also being aware of the costs associated with defending challenges precipitated by environmental justice concerns.
And now Eric Winford is up. And Eric is going to speak with us today about expanding renewable energy development currently in Idaho. All right, and take it away, Eric.
Thank you, Marie. So I'm going to be talking about renewable energy expansion in Idaho. And Idaho's production of renewable energy is about to jump. So anyone who lives in the southern part of the state or has driven across Interstate 84 knows that Idaho can get windy. And of course, we have plenty of sun, especially during the summer months. We also have geothermal resources, plus lots of forest for biomass energy. And of course, our rivers produce lots of hydropower. So perhaps it's not surprising that we have plenty of options for producing renewable power. And if you look at Idaho in comparison to other states, we produce way more of our energy from renewables. Nearly 70% of our electricity comes from renewable energy. But in terms of total production, we're not a large energy producing state, especially if you look at other states around us like Wyoming or Nevada or Oregon. We produce about a third of the energy that those states around us produce, but that could change really soon. So Idaho is getting connected to other states throughout the West with high capacity transmission lines. And these lines will allow Idaho to generate and carry that energy to markets across the West. So there's a number of projects that are really important that are coming to fruition pretty soon. The Gateway West project connects Idaho to points to the west through Wyoming with lines that run through the Snake River Valley. The Bordway to Hemingway project connects Idaho to Oregon and also runs through the Snake River Valley and links to the Gateway West project around Twin Falls. And another project, the Southwest Intertide project, will connect Idaho to Nevada and all points south. And that project connects to the east-west transmission lines near Twin Falls. So these projects have been in the works for years, but they're getting close to completion, and renewable energy developers are paying attention. Because of the location of the lines in the Snake River Valley, that puts those lines closest to the greatest sources of potential wind, solar, and geothermal energy that the state has. And in the last year or so, a number of proposals have been drafted and submitted that would double, or if everything came online exactly as proposed, almost triple our existing energy production capacity. One project alone is estimating that it could produce 1,000 megawatts of wind energy through the installation of 400 turbines. And so that would nearly double our existing production of wind energy. And that's the Lava Ridge project just northeast of Twin Falls. Now that project was just proposed, and it also sits on public land, mostly land managed by the Bureau of Land Management, but also some Idaho state lands. So there will be a lot of environmental review and public input and revision before that project starts, so it might not turn out exactly as proposed. But I expect many more projects to be proposed in the coming year, partly because of the Biden administration's focus on renewable energy production. And the final point I kind of want to make about this is because Idaho is mostly public land, and because of the location of the transmission lines, as well as the siting of the wind, solar, and geothermal resources, a lot of these projects will be situated on public land. And before these projects can get approved, there's going to be lots of discussion and environmental review around how to make the projects these projects could potentially have a very large footprint. And so there'll be a lot of discussion about how to make those compatible with the multiple use management mandate that the land managers have. And that will include projects are compatible with existing uses on the land, like ranching or recreation, as well as making sure that the projects don't impact resources like wildlife, especially sensitive species like sage grouse that live on these lands as well. So don't hold your breath that the projects will occur fast or look exactly like what they are proposed, but these projects are becoming, and they could have a potentially significant impact on Idaho's production of renewable energy. And with that, Marie,
nice.
And I will turn it over to Mike.
I would just like
Did I make it in time?
From the peanut gallery here, the clock's still ticking down. You finished with 28 seconds to spare.
Oh, gosh.
Nice work. So that probably together might add up to what Scott and I went over. I don't know, like maybe, I'm not sure. Okay, Mike, I'm going to get this reset for you.
Okay. I'm going to let me set my own timer here.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, the bar has been set. Got to get under 5 minutes.
And go.
We ready? Okay. So my hot topic today is buckle up for PFAS regulations in 2022. You may recall in 2019, I did a similar hot topic that basically said under the Trump administration, they had indicated that they would not move forward any regulation. And indeed, that's what happened. 2022, with the new administration, I think we're going to see some changes. Just a quick primer here. PFAS is per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Basically, these are large carbon compounds that are manufactured that have some fluorine in them, and they're very resistant. And there's a number of chemicals that you'll see. And again, you can look this up on the internet and get the idea. But really, we're talking about thousands of compounds. But there's a couple key ones that really have been the focus of the regulators of EPA and concerns with respect to toxicity. These are known as the forever chemicals. And I think that's the big thing, is that they don't biodegrade very readily in soils and water and in the atmosphere. So they stick around a long time. You may recall these things are used, they resist heat, oil, stains oil. They're used for firefighting foam. That's probably a big use of them. Coatings and food packaging, such as popcorn, bags, nonstick, your Teflon nonstick pan is also PFAS type compound, as well as stain and resistant textiles, such as your Scotchgard and your carpets, as well as your Gore-Tex coat. All those contain the PFAS compounds. So they're readily used, very, very useful and valuable compounds. So what's going on in 2022? Well, the Biden administration said that PFAS would be a top priority for them. And Michael Regan, the EPA administrator, formed a EPA Council of PFAS in April of 2021. And then that that council came out with what's called the PFAS Strategic Roadmap. And that was in April. So it was just, I'm sorry, it was in October. So this was just this past October, just a few months ago, that they came out with that. You can Google it, PFAS Strategic Roadmap, download it. It's got a lot of information on it. And basically it's what it says. It's a roadmap of what EPA plans to do over the next couple of years. So I'm just going to focus on a couple things here. One, certainly a big one, is the Clean Water Act. Maybe has the biggest impact for Idaho. A couple things. MCLs, drinking water standards, we can expect that EPA will come forward with draft MCLs for a couple of these compounds, one called PFOA and the other PFOS. These are a couple of the PFAS compounds. We expect MCLs for those in 2022, and then implementation of those as actual MCLs in 2023. Big implications for Idaho in terms of drinking water. If you recall arsenic, for example, and the implications that had when the drinking water standard changed for a lot of local municipalities and so forth, expect the same thing here. Some health advisories as well on the drinking water side. And then on the surface water, we can expect to see some effluent limitations for discharges, the MPDS permits that the various municipalities have and industry has for discharging to streams. But we can also see some ambient water quality standards. So be expecting to see some drafts of those here in 2022 as well. On the biosolids side, and that's the sewage sludge that's basically treated and land applied, and there's a number of municipalities in Idaho that do that. EPA's doing some studies, some risk assessments, and we can probably expect that probably in 2023 or 2024. But again, may have big implications for Idaho. Finally, and I mentioned the arsenic and the expense that was for municipalities when that came forward. The Biden administration, as you recall, and we had a forum on this, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, $10 billion have been set aside for emerging contaminants, and that includes PFAS for drinking water. So while I expect that treatment's probably maybe going to be necessary for some municipalities and drinking water facilities, there is some money available that'll go a long way on that. A couple other things besides the Clean Water Act that we expect to see here. EPA has been pushing to classify a number of the PFAS compounds as hazardous substance under CERCLA. CERCLA is the Superfund. And so what this means is that sites that have been impacted with PFAS compounds, we can expect to see Superfund cleanup. And so that's that again, may have some implications to Idaho. And then finally, under RCRA, a number of these compounds will be considered hazardous waste, which again will mean disposal cost and the type of disposal that will come. So in summary, federal regulations are coming. I think some significant impacts to Idaho. So something to keep a lookout. And again, look up that PFAS strategic roadmap. That will give you a lot more information of what we can expect coming here in 2022 in the future. And I'm done.
And you're done. And the ducks just started quacking.
There you go.
They're done. There's
without going over. Mike wins.
I think Mike wins. Yeah, because he maximized every second. Didn't go over. That's how a pro does it. That's a pro hot topic right there. That's
there you go.
Yeah. Years of practice.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. He's just the old guy. That's all.
Well, that was really interesting, and I learned something from each of you. I hope you learned something from me too. And we really want to, as we close out today, we want to thank everybody, whether this is your first IEF Legislative Forum Gala event or the 25th, because this is the 25th anniversary, the silver anniversary. We're really glad that you're here, and we thank you for tuning in. Like so many people and entities all over the world, the IEF just sort of pivoted about 2 years ago overnight and went straight to virtual events and communications. And then also, like so many people around the world, each time we've thought maybe we're all going to be able to come back and gather safely together in person, a new wave of the pandemic arrives. And this week is no exception to that. And we want to give a huge shout out, though, to our sponsors. Without our sponsors, the IEF could not have continued these last couple of years. And we really, really thank all the people and business and agencies and people in Idaho who are why the IEF is able to continue. Because of their generosity, we as a board have been able to do our best to continue to create content and put it out to the world. doing our best to do what the IEF founders established over 30 years ago now, which was to create a venue for open, honest, and transparent discourse about natural resource issues that impact and are relevant in Idaho. So thanks again for being here, and be sure to tune in tomorrow for the final event of our legislative week, the press panel. This year's panelists include Clark Corbin with the Idaho Capital Sun, Eric Barker with the Lewiston Tribune, and Nicole Blanchard with the Idaho Statesman. And it will be moderated by Boise State Public Radio's host of the Idaho Matters program, Gemma Gaudette. So we're really excited about that. That's going to be a live event. This, believe it or not, was recorded and put out to you. I'm sure everybody knows that by now. But tomorrow's will be live. So we do hope that you tune in, and we thank you so much. Be well, everybody, and we hope to see you in person soon.